Erika Nardini is here.
Formerly Erika Nardini, now Erika Ayers Badan, is the first CEO of Barstool Sports.
When I went to Barstool, most people I knew from the establishment were like, you're an idiot and committing career suicide. My back's up against a wall and I have only one way out of this thing, which is to make this thing successful.
Finally, the day has come to announce our new CEO, my boss, big old balls, Erika Nardini.
Erika Nardini, CEO Barstool.
It felt like you had the job to midwife Barstool from what it was to what you ended up creating.
Greatest job I've ever had. Blogs to long form video to podcast to short form video to social only video to live video to events. And we always thought about audience first and money second.
And now you have the job to A, grow the company obviously, and B, also to be accountable to the investors, to the advertisers.
There's a lot of stress. Somebody wrote a blog calling Michelle Obama thick.
Yeah.
Who wrote that blog? I feel like it was Nate.
That sounds like a Nate blog.
It does sound like
a Nate blog.
So I can remember Peter Chernin calling me because the Obamas were mad. Dave was like ragging on LeBron. LeBron was mad. Can you believe what he did? And they've said this, they should be different. Barstool was always about punching above its weight out of its own opinion.
Let's talk about the sale. Did you feel like you were conceding something or do you feel relieved?
I felt so... All right, I'm ready. Are you ready?
I am ready.
Are you
guys?
ready?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay.
Good to go, G? We're good to go. Perfect. I want to talk about the book, but I want to also start with the news, which is...
What's the news?
Alex Cooper.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she jumped ship at this point twice.
Yes.
She left y'all to go to Spotify.
Yes.
For 60, and now
for 80.
In 80, okay, and now for SiriusXM for 125.
She's a smart woman.
She's a smart woman, and the lead which gets buried is why Dave hired her in the first place. And you can fact check me here, which is Dave was super impressed when he learned that she was editing her videos herself. So she was not just like a prima donna talent. Yeah. She was getting her hands dirty. I want you to talk to me about the value of being scrappy as a talent in the digital media world, and also speak to what a clutch talent Alex Cooper is.
Okay. Alex Cooper is a clutch talent.
Yeah.
She's a unicorn. She's in the Dave Portnoy pantheon of talent from the internet, which I'd put Big Cat in. Like, there's a lot of Barstool people who I think fit on that. But she's a mega talent. And she's a mega talent because she has it all. She's smart. She's savvy. And I think savvy and smart are sometimes different. Yeah. Two is she is not afraid of controversy. Obviously, like the beginning of Call Her Daddy, Call Her Daddy was just the raunchiest, Gluck Gluck 3000 or whatever, like just the raunchiest sex podcast ever from two like insanely pretty girls. You know what I mean? So like she knew what she was doing. And then what was really, there's a lot of things I think really special about Alex, but was particularly special about her, which is like Caleb Presley also has this, is she was a maniac about how everything looked. Yeah. And she would edit it herself and edit it again and redo it again. And Caleb's the same way and Dave's the same way. And even if they're having people do it for them, she cares, she knows, she has a vision for what her product is. And she is relentless about keeping it. So I think that's what makes Alex so special. If you look at Big Cat, for an example, Big Cat's not editing, pardon my take, Hank is doing that. But, I think a lot of times when people look at on-air personalities and when the camera isn't on, they're just like twiddling their thumbs or doodling around or doing like selfies on Instagram. If you ever watched Big Cat spent so much time researching his guests, and he spent so much time in people's DMs. Like, hey, do you want to come on the show? Do you want to come on the show? Do you want to come on the show? So I think there's this work ethic with really exceptional talent. And when you combine that work ethic with a sense of savviness about what plays in culture, and you have a vision for what the product is going to look like, that's when you find truly differentiated talent.
Speaking of talent, I think we are in a state where there are individuals who are popping up and becoming bigger than the brand, let's call it. People like, let's say, Tucker, Megyn Kelly, Barry Weiss, who we're a fan of. Pat McAfee.
Yep.
They have all kind of sort of superseded how they started.
Yep.
And they obviously can pull same numbers,
Mm-hmm.
make as much money, if not more. As someone whose job it was and is to build talents
Mm-hmm.
and create shows, what is the thinking now, given the state of the union of social media, that, hey, we are pouring this much resources into building talents and creating shows. What if they leave us when they get big?
Yeah, I mean, we always knew that at Barstool, and Dave always coined this great phrase of it's like a rookie athlete contract, right? Where you come on, we're going to sign you to the rookie deal, you outplay, we're going to rip it up and start all over again. And at some point, you play so well or you get so big where you decide to stay, maybe with a hometown discount, or you decide to go. Media has changed so much, even in, I was at Barstool almost 10 years. So since 2016, when I got to Barstool, media has changed so dramatically, right? When in 2016, ESPN was the king and Sports Center was the showcase show, and then came the talent. That's over. Now it's talent. Maybe it's network. Maybe they don't have a network, right? You look at McAfee's on a whole bunch of different networks, or you look at someone like Alex, to your point, where she can hop networks and nobody cares, right? Because they just want Alex. They don't care where Alex lives. But I think media has become, and fandom and audience is now following truly opinion and perspective and a product that a person is putting out. So Barry is the single biggest thing on Substack. She's got millions and millions of followers on Substack. She's building a world around her with the free press. McAfee has a world around him. He's not building stars the way I think Barry's trying to build stars. Alex Cooper is trying to build Alex Earl as a star. Like, we'll see how that goes. But the media network is a personality network in 2024. And I think it will be going forward.
What do you think when the whole Alex thing was going on, the Alex Cooper thing was going on? Because from the outside, it's so easy to call it like a zero-sum game. Hey, Barstool is losing, Alex is winning, or vice versa, whoever side you're on. But at the same time, I know that you all have a good relation. Dave was just on our podcast. What was the thought process like? If you
when Alex left Barstool?
Yeah, in hindsight, now you think about that time while she was
that was a
leaving.
crazy ride. Alex, and then there was the Sophia thing, and then there was like, are they staying? Are they going? Are they staying? Are they going? There's the endless negotiation. When Alex went to Spotify, it was a great move for her. One, we didn't have $80 million over whatever X number of 3 years to pay her. And two, she wanted to call her daddy into something very different. If you look at the Unwell tour, right? Last weekend, she had her 30th birthday in Montauk, and she created the Unwell Hotel. She wanted to build the brand into something bigger. She became an interviewer. She was no longer the host of a sex and, kind of a female podcast. I don't even know what you would call it, but she used that jump and that quote unquote elevation to turn herself into something else, which is awesome to see. McAfee, same deal. McAfee left. He created the world around him. He became a major figure on WWE. He went to Game Day. He's still doing his own show. Like, I think you're seeing talent do that now, where they have their own world. They may play in other people's worlds. That's the McAfee model, right? Or they may be more like Tucker, where it's just Tucker, and
that's it.
Yeah.
Going back in time when you joined Barstool, first of all, it was so funny watching that video for the first time. It's funny, especially because you kind of hid behind Big Cat's silhouette to the point where no one knew that you were standing behind it.
Finally, the day has come to announce our new CEO, my boss, big old balls, Erika Nardini.
Erika Nardini, CEO Barstool.
It felt like you had the job to midwife Barstool from what it was to what you ended up creating. You talk a lot about the fact that when you joined the company, there was no P&L. Dave wasn't sending any emails. He was just texting people or whatever. Talk to me, like, what was the day-to-day in the beginning for you? Because you have the trust of Dave and Chernin, and now you have to build something from, not scratch, but like you have to build it into something bigger.
Yeah. It was a great luxury, like the greatest job I've ever had. You know, I loved it so much. The beginning was fun and unknown, insecure. It was unknown. You know, I remember we had an offsite in Nantucket at Dave's house, and it was like they were like, "What is an offsite?" You know, we were creating the New York office. So very, very beginning, I worked out of a coffee shop or, you know, a hotel near Dave's house, actually his apartment. And then eventually we opened the office, and eventually we started to fill the office up. And what we slowly did was we built all the pieces that need to live under a modern company, right? We had a P&L, we had a plan to make money, we had a plan to grow audience, we had a plan to find new fans, we had a plan to expand the formats we were in. So it was, you know, it was such a wild ride, the whole thing, the ups and downs and the ins and outs. But the beginning was really special because it was just very, very small and nobody was looking at what we were doing. You know, it was just us kind of figuring it out in the kitchen. And I think that's a really rare, amazing, like it's hard to be at the beginning of something. And Barstool had been around for 10 years before I got there. So it wasn't even really the beginning. But I think for anybody who's building a brand as a creator, or building a production company, those beginning days when you're not sure if you're ever going to be successful or if you're just a fucking idiot, like those are the best days.
Speaking of the beginning days, what was different from your previous world before Barstool was the amount of transparency with which Barstool operates, whereas their dirty laundry lives on everyone's social media.
Yeah.
And now you have the job to grow the company, obviously, and B, also to be accountable to the investors,
Yep.
to the advertisers, which is kind of hard when the company is as transparent as Barstool is. How did you do that?
Yeah, that was hard. It was a lot of stress.
Yeah.
It was stressful because I cared a lot, and everyone there really, really believed. And that's the thing about Barstool, is the work ethic inside of Barstool is insanely strong. And I really believed that these guys deserved a chance. And I also was getting a daily earful about, oh, they should be like this, or they should do that, or they should be different, or, you know, can you believe what he did? And they've said this. And there was so much noise in my ear from the outside of, you know, or, you know, like, you know, the grunts and the shuns, or the, you know, oh, you should do this, you should do that, or what about this, what about that, and it was so noisy inside because everyone was creating something and it was just chaos, that it helped me just block out the outside. I really got to quite early that I was not going to be able to convince people who didn't understand Barstool or who weren't really buying into what we were building, which is why I call this book Nobody Cares About Your Career, which is when I went to Barstool, most people I knew from the establishment were like, you're an idiot and committing career suicide. It was okay. It actually was good for me because I was like, my back's up against a wall and I have only one way out of this thing, which is to make this thing successful. So that was good for me. But then the second thing is a lot of people had a lot of opinions about Barstool, including investors, including, you know, people, interested parties, including people we potentially wanted to work with, but they didn't really care. And they weren't willing to get inside and figure out what was going to happen every day to be able to be successful. And it was easy at that point to be like, you're not invested in us. You're not with us for the long haul. You're not really bought into making us successful. So your opinion immediately gets discarded.
What I really like and admire about you is I work in quote unquote the corporate media world, and I talk to a lot of people who view career and jobs as like, you know, like horizontal movement or like lateral movement or like vertical movement.
They
like,
say those words.
They say like moving laterally or moving vertically.
Okay.
And that's one cohort of people. And there's another cohort of people who I also deal with who want to build stuff.
Yep.
Right. And you had every reason to be in that former group of people given the names on your resume, but instead you chose to build something and get as crappy as possible. Mm-hmm. I know that you are, and you can fact check me, is like you come from like a working class family and people build stuff like be that like wood chippers or whatever. Talk to me about how much that played into your personality?
Yeah, I was very unhappy in corporate jobs.
Yeah.
I just was really unhappy. And the reason I was unhappy is I just cared simply I think I cared too much. Like I wanted it to be so great and everybody to be all bought in and us to go through the struggle and the journey together, and everyone I worked with was like, you're a loser and I just want to like get the free snacks and get out of here at 4:45. Like that was my corporate life. Learned a lot, met great people, got taught a lot. So I was glad I did it. But I really think there's something exhilarating about building something. And it takes a lot of grit. It takes guts. It takes resilience. It takes being willing to be wrong all the time. It takes failure. I just read something this morning, like the guy who created the Dyson vacuum, he created 5,167 prototypes that were total failures. Yeah. So when you're starting something, you have to be able to create a lot of really shitty vacuums. Yeah. That's how I grew up. Like I grew up in, the middle of nowhere in New England. I'm from Colorado originally. My parents were teachers. And my brother and I could share 1 hour of television a week, and we could either like stack wood, play sports, or read a book was really the options. And we also had a lot of my parents both worked, so we had a lot of downtime where you had to self-entertain. Like I had to walk to and from school every day. Like it wasn't pretty. Mm-hmm. And I think that we live in a world right now where people want everything to be pretty and to be like, ooh, it's got to look, there's got to be something interesting for my TikTok. Yeah. I want to look the lifestyle versus do the work. And I think it's good to kind of come from a place where the expectations aren't really high and where your resiliency and your belief that and your knowledge, quite honestly, that like you got to figure it out for yourself every day. I think that is helpful.
While building Barstool, obviously there were ups and downs. There were like a lot of slings and arrows here and there. I'm a stoolie. I've been following Barstool for a while, and when there are allegations, cancel culture, whatever, thrown at particular individuals, let's say Francis or Mintzy or whatever, and you know who those people are in reality, you know what how their fans look at them, but at the same time you have investors and advertisers to be accountable to. When stuff like that happens, how are you doing the cost benefit in your head?
Oh, it's like you kind of move into crisis mode, right? Where you're like, all right, so the first thing, and I wish more people did this, is you have to go to the source. Yeah. So if it's Mintzy making a mistake in a song lyric, or if it's an accusation against someone else, like you got to go to the person and you got to treat them as a person, and you have to understand what happened, like, and what was your thinking, and how did this happen, and how did we get here, and you can get a lot of information on that. You understand somebody's intent. You understand people are so fallible. Like I think I feel like we're a little bit out of the woke cancel culture
coming
time
out of it,
a little bit. Yeah. But 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, it was like
wild,
deafening and like choking. Like you could not. Everything was wrong, and it was a mob. It truly was a mob. So, for me, I always wanted to take care of the people. And then it was running a lot of interference. Like, I mean, it wasn't just the controversies. It was like, I remember who wrote the blog? Somebody wrote a blog calling Michelle Obama thick.
Yeah.
Who wrote that blog?
I don't know that, but I know that, yeah.
I feel like it was Nate. Okay, so like
that sounds like a Nate blog.
It does sound like
a Nate blog.
So I can remember like being in the train station and Peter Chernin calling me because the Obamas were mad, and then Dave was like ragging on LeBron, and somebody who knew LeBron was mad. Like there were people mad all the time about all the blogs, let alone when something happened that kind of caught hold.
Yeah.
But I think some things you got to make right.
Yeah.
Some things you're like, this is blown out of proportion. And some things you need to take really seriously in terms of like, hey, there's either something bigger at at foot here or at play.
Yeah. Are you kind of relieved now that you're in Food 52 and there's none of that to do?
Oh, I miss them.
Yeah, no one's gonna
I
get
miss
canceled over like
them.
making a recipe wrong way.
Yeah, no, maybe. People are crazy. People are crazy. The internet is a crazy place. We put a video out about whether your dessert fork should be on like the left side or the right side.
Oh my God.
And people were like going bananas in the comments about it. And the funny thing was the Food 52 people were like, oh, what if I put it in the wrong way? And I was like,
that's just a Tuesday for
like,
you. Yeah.
embrace debate. Like, get with the right side fork people. Get with the left side fork people. So we have some work to do on that.
Yeah. Speaking of different media companies, for the last couple of years, I would say we saw, big names like Vice News, BuzzFeed, Mike, Mashable, I'm 28. So like all the news companies which I grew up kind of sort of like
Oh, that's
scrolling
so
on
funny.
Facebook kind of like go
Attention.
away. Like those companies
Yeah.
don't exist anymore because
Yeah.
like they were not able to like adjust to the creator economy.
Yep.
They're still in the click mode. Talk to me about how Barstool survived that whole thing.
Yeah. It's funny. All those media companies are gone. Think
Yeah.
of how much value has been destroyed
Yeah.
in that. Like, that's a lot of investor money.
Yeah.
Media is not really that interesting of a sector anymore. It's too bad. It'll actually be interesting to see how many investors go deep into the creator economy and
yeah.
how. I think they're trying to figure it out. Some are in there, but
Yeah.
I think that's an interesting
I think like the core thing here is like there's this knowledge gap where people who have money are still yet to realize that how much power is with individual creators and
100%.
how much leverage
Yeah.
they have over a bigger company vis-a-vis them doing same
Definitely.
numbers as the bigger companies.
Definitely. But they also don't like it because they're human.
They're human,
and they're
yeah.
fallible and dramatic, and then they're like entering into my old life. But
How Barstool survived that.
oh, so how we survive that. So, what we did at Barstool that was smart was that we built a lot of different business lines. So we didn't follow the revenue. We followed audience. And we were really, really pure about that, which you will understand because you're from this world. But when we were doing it in 2016, the creator economy isn't what it is now. It just didn't exist this way. But, when podcasts look like podcasts were a big growth vehicle, we like tripled down on podcast. And when Facebook Live and Periscope were battling it out over live streaming, like we went to Facebook and Periscope Live. When, what was that thing? Clubhouse launched on Twitter at the time. We were like, all right, we got to figure out that. We tried a subscription business. We went from blogs to long form video to podcast to short form video to social only video to live video to events. Like we built a lot of, we always listened to the audience, and we always thought about audience first and money second, but we always quickly followed with a revenue model. Yeah. And what I think BuzzFeed or Vice or, those companies got really big. They took a lot of money. And I think when a company takes a lot of money, they start making really bad decisions where they just, BuzzFeed was clickbait. It was the listicle. Like they've never succeeded outside of the listicle. Vice was the ad agency. Like Vice really at its core was an ad agency with a cool media brand attached to it. But both companies took in a lot of capital, both got fat, and both got confused about who the customer was. Like I remember meeting with Vice. I think we were pitching to have a show on Vice Sports maybe. And I remember talking to this guy from Vice, and I was like, hey, well, tell me about your customers. And he thought I was talking about advertisers.
Oh, no.
Because
Yeah.
that's where their head goes.
Yeah.
And I was like, oof.
That's like a B2B thinking.
If you're
yeah.
thinking about advertisers before you're thinking about consumers, you're fucked.
Yeah.
So I think that's partly why.
I think another read on this from my point of view is I read Vice, I read BuzzFeed, and I also read Barstool. I felt like I had a parasocial relationship with people who are writing for Barstool. Whereas that
What's
didn't
parasocial mean?
That means I feel
You felt like you
I
knew them.
I knew them, whereas they don't know me, obviously.
Yeah.
But like feeling that the person who you're reading or you're listening to on podcast,
They're
them.
talking to
You're
you.
talking
Yeah.
to me.
Yeah.
That never happened for any of the writers.
No, because they were
yeah.
trying to be professional.
Yeah.
Like that's the glory of Barstool Sports. It's like nobody was trying to be professional.
Yeah.
We built a professional shell
Yeah.
around people who were just writing like you and I talking
Yeah.
about what they cared about.
You mentioned subscription in there, and I've heard. I think you still consider that Barstool Gold was a failure.
Definitely.
First of all, for whatever it's worth, I paid for it.
I'm sorry.
And not sorry, because I really wanted to watch Dave's origin story, and that was behind a paywall.
So the documentary was great.
Yeah, the documentary was great.
That was the best thing we did.
Yeah, it was
100%.
well produced, and that was
Best
for
thing we did
free.
there.
But at the moment,
Yeah.
I still felt like my money was worth it. So just to keep that
Shirt of the month.
Yeah,
And a tour. You could have had a tour.
the tour was good. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, but let's talk about like failures, because
Yeah.
like on the books, you were following all the media rule books for that time, which is everyone was going subscription because you need your customer's email, you
Yeah.
need their credit card number, you
Yeah.
have to build a relationship.
Yeah.
Whereas it didn't work for Barstool
Yeah.
because Barstool doesn't work like that,
Yeah.
and it's all about being transparent.
Yeah.
At what point were you honest with yourself regarding the fact that, all right, it's time to move on and let's not harp over this?
Yeah. So the desire to create gold, this was pre-PASPA. So this was before PASPA was repealed and before the sports betting legalization. So PASPA essentially gave the states rights to decide if they would allow sports betting or not. Prior to that being legal, it was illegal. We were like, shit, the only way out for Barstool is a media company. And what media companies were valuing at that point in time were databases, because they're all trying to build streaming and they need the subscriptions to drive those businesses. They need a depth of a database. So we launched Gold, and we really endeavored to be thoughtful with Gold. Like we put a lot of cycles, we put a lot of dev work into it, we put a lot of creative work into it, but it was always uncomfortable. It was like wearing shoes that didn't fit, because our guys and girls and women and men, they wanted audience. Like they wanted, how many likes did this thing get? Like we had primed this machine of culture to be like, how many likes did I get? How many comments did I get? How many views did I get? Did I go viral? And the whole notion of being behind a paywall is so anti that. Now, paywalls are good businesses. If you look at Barry Weiss,
for
you know
news.
what I mean? Like,
It's
it's an awesome business. Like you have a relationship with your subscriber. Like I'm all over Substack at this point. Like there's really, really great content that I'm super happy to pay for. But for Barstool was always about punching above its weight out of its own opinion.
Yeah.
And a paywall would prevent that. So for us, it really just became such a grind inside. And it was so like against our nature. It's like if you're a vegetarian and forcing you to eat meat every day, like it just was like our stomachs couldn't take it.
Yeah.
And it was really at that point that we were like, this is just not a good endeavor. It's not good for the fans. It's not good for the talent. It wasn't good for the company.
I know you recently went vegetarian. How's that going for you?
Oh, it lasted like a week.
Are you back?
I'm
okay,
back.
Cool. Nice
Yeah,
to have
I'm
you back.
back.
All
Thanks.
right, cool.
That was short-lived.
Yeah, short-lived. Speaking of, let's talk about work, because this
Okay.
book is a lot about work
Yeah.
and why people work and the motivation behind it. And you talk a lot about all the recent trends about quiet quitting,
Yeah.
lazy gold Mondays, and stuff like that. I'm gonna try to advocate for the other side here, even
Okay.
though
You're gonna
I relate
advocate
to
for Lazy
you.
Girl Summer.
Yeah, right
Okay.
now I am. Even though I'm an immigrant, so I 100% relate to everything that you say. I had to figure my
Yeah.
out. So there was like no quiet
You're
quitting
not
for
Lazy
me.
Girl
That
Summer.
never happened
Yeah,
for
but
me.
we're gonna pretend.
Yeah,
Okay.
but let's protect them for a while. Their argument is basically that we don't live in a world right now where you can work for a company, climb the proverbial corporate ladder, retire with a golden Rolex, and you will have a house, a wife, kids who go to college, and then you retire. That is over, because as of now, the money which you're getting paid in companies, that's not enough for you to quote unquote live a life, figure it out, and all that stuff. If that's true, then why the fuck should I give
Okay.
a shit about
Yeah.
like my company, how my bosses think about me?
Yeah.
So let's just file it in and move on.
Okay.
What's your
So how are you
take on
going to
that?
make money?
How am I going to make money?
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter, because all I want is for my life to look good on Instagram, and whatever money I'm making is enough just to survive.
Okay. I get that.
Did I do a good job, by
You
the way?
did a great job.
Yeah, okay, cool.
I think you have massive credit card debt, but like you did a great job. You did a great job. I get the argument. If you put yourself in the shoes of like someone even younger than you, like you put yourself in the shoes of like a 24-year-old, if you read all the stuff from all the smart intellectual people, it's like their lives aren't going to be better than their parents' lives. And, they're not going to get the Rolex in the corner office and because there aren't going to be corner offices or whatever. So like, I get that. I get the like, why the fuck would I buy into this thing if there's nothing? What do you call it? Denialism?
Nihilism. Like,
oh yes, 100%. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So I get that. But I think the thing that where it doesn't add up, where it doesn't compute is if the answer is, hey, I don't believe in this path, or I don't believe in these traditional paths that came before and these very specific routes for how to be successful, I agree with that. I don't believe in what came before me either. But the life of I'm just living day to day to look good on Instagram is really a soulless life. And it's not, you're standing still, right? You're going to lose your beauty. You're going to lose your figure. You're going to lose your hot boyfriend or girlfriend and the yacht and like it just leaves you in a place where you're not building anything. And so my argument to the other side of you is whether you work in a big company or a bodega, who cares? Make the most of the hours in your day that you spend getting a skill, and that work is tuition that you essentially get paid for, and that you can use that skill to go do something else. So like, I'm not deeply prescribed to like, you should have a corporate career or you should definitely work in this area or that. Like, I do think everyone should live in New York City once in their life. Like I'm an advocate of that, but I think that it's about the character that you develop from work that's really important. And even if you're never quote unquote successful, or even if you never quote unquote buy into anything but yourself, you will have the skills to make something of yourself. Like, look at Dave Portnoy, right? Like, Dave Portnoy worked at a research consulting company. I think he was in sales. And he was like, I hate this. It's not for me. But you know what he did? He like racked up a bunch of debt. He started a paper. He drove the van. He printed it out. He wrote under 5 surnames, like, and he made an empire.
Yeah.
And if he just sat around and tried to look good on Instagram didn't exist, but like something, you would never
Facebook,
make that happen, and your life would never go to these places. So,
not to be like
How'd I
corny,
do?
you did great. Yeah, you nailed it. Even though I agreed with you to begin with. Not to be like corny about it, but when I first moved to the US, and my first job was to basically edit documentaries and make documentaries, and it basically meant like just staying in the studio for like long hours and like be in the edit. And I had like 3 screens, and in one of the screens, your Token CEO podcast played, and it kind of sort of gave me company because I was sitting on the dirtiest table possible, and so were you. No offense. So it felt like there was someone else in the office.
That makes me so happy.
So that helped me go through like that time of my career or whatever.
Where did you immigrate from?
Well, I was born in India. I went to school in the UK.
Okay.
And
where in India?
Calcutta.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you read Shantaram?
I have read
Did you love it?
I liked it. Yeah.
Oh, I loved
It's a good book. Yeah.
So good.
But no, like during that whole journey, so like I never built the muscle which would allow me to feel whatever quiet quitting is. The urge to quiet quit is. Yeah, so my default setting doesn't allow me.
Not a lot of quiet quitters in Calcutta.
So like my default settings never allowed me to hop on that Gen Z trend or whatever, even though I am both Gen Z and millennial.
Do you feel weird with people your age that way?
Oh, not really, because luckily my cohort is none of the quiet quitters.
You have a tribe.
My tribe,
Your peeps.
My tribe are like the
Like
scrappiest
you.
people possible.
Yeah.
So, and my corporate tribe is a little different, but even then it's like just people who are just doing stuff.
Yeah.
But long story long, I really appreciated the way you put it in there,
That's
and
nice.
it didn't feel like I felt like I was being talked to, and I really appreciate it.
I hate when people talk at me, so I didn't want to write a.
No, it didn't feel
business
like
book.
preachy, but like
Yeah,
it
it's
felt
not
like
preachy.
not
Yeah, we're
preachy
like
talk.
having a conversation.
Yeah, like that.
Okay.
Let's talk about the sale.
Okay.
And because I was obsessed with that whole saga.
It was so interesting.
Yeah, both times it happened. Obviously, it felt like your magnum opus. Like for this long, you built a company, and now it's getting sold for $550 million.
Yeah.
But then when time came, there was also this sobering realization where that this is not the right fit.
Yeah.
We are media, we are content, we are relationship, and that is regulation.
Yeah.
When did you feel like you were conceding something, or did it feel like did you feel relieved when the dollar sale happened back to Portnoy?
I mean, the dollar sale was a screamer, just getting up to the dollar sale. So I was tired. I felt so happy that that the company would be Dave's. Yeah. I really felt like, for me, it was like a full circle. I felt like I felt like I could breathe. I was like, it's in the right home. So I do think I felt relieved. And it was totally the right outcome.
Now that you're looking back and like the advantage of hindsight, what do you think of like that time when the sale was happening and everyone in the company was kind of sort of like relieved of sorts?
The dollar sale?
The buyback sale, yeah.
Yeah, I think, 2023 was a crazy year. It really was crazy from like 2020 to 2023. And, like, credit to PENN for making a bet on us. And then the pandemic happened and it was a really topsy-turvy time everywhere. But the company had spent from 2019 to 2023 getting itself ready to be part of a very big, publicly regulated, publicly traded company. And that was hard. Like, that was a lot of that was stressful for Barstool Sports. Like, that was the hardest thing we did there. The early years were easy compared to trying to contort ourselves to fit into heavily regulated, closely watched, publicly traded company. I do think when we got the company back, well, one, we had to bring in a lot of people to be ready for that transition. So there was a group of people who were like, this is not for me. Like, I came for that type of Barstool that was never going to really ever be. So that group exited. But I think the core talent was very happy because it was very stressful. You had to not only watch everything that was said because of what was happening culturally or just what's happening in the zeitgeist, but then you had to watch everything you said because of, how would it affect PENN?
Yeah.
And that's a lot of pressure on people. It's a lot of pressure, especially when, this as a creator, which is like, you start with a blank page. And when your job every day is to make people laugh and get page views, and you're starting with nothing, and then you have somebody looking over your shoulder of like, don't say the wrong thing, like, that's not a good creative environment.
Speaking of transitions, obviously now you're at Food 52, different people, different audience,
different office,
cleaner bathrooms.
The best.
Talk to me about how do you envision the next few years here where you're trying to build something which I'm guessing they haven't done before, which is build personalities within Food 52.
Yeah. I'm excited about it. It's really different for me. Like, don't you think it's different? I mean, do you think it's weird to see me here? No. I think I seem normal here. Yeah. I hope so. He's not going to say no. But I am trying to find my home here. So I think that's, it hasn't been that long. I am excited about it. I wanted to work for a different consumer. Like, I wanted to work with a different audience, and the Food 52 audience looks more like me, which is kind of fun. Not that the Barstool audience didn't, but it didn't in a lot of ways. I'm excited to build content and personalities and community and storytelling. And then I'm really interested in the design and the manufacturing and the supply chain and the business. So I have a lot to learn. I was writing this book. I started the book when PENN bought Barstool, and I finished it just as I was making the decision to leave Barstool. And so the book kind of is about, hey, you got to have your head in the game to make change and to do things for yourself and to scare yourself and to do something you don't know. And then how do you navigate it? And then when do you know if it's time to stay or go? Like, that's basically the sections of the book. And I was living through that, and now I'm living through that in a new job. I think it's strange, probably my age, having gone through the Barstool thing, to be like, oh, I'm going to make a big pivot. I'm going to take a totally different type of job. But I'm really interested in it. I really like the people here. I'm excited by it, and, see what we can make of it.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your time. And before
that's it.
Before I wrap it, I want to give you something.
Oh, wow.
Diego, where's my backpack? My brown backpack.
Oh,
Can you
shit.
see it?
Yes, we're going.
Oh, yeah. I know you like green orbits, I think.
I love
There we go. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You got
You're
it.
so thoughtful. All right.
Perfect.
I appreciate you.
You
I'm
got
gonna
it.
give you a hug.
Thank you.
Do you want to get a picture or anything?
Sure. Yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
Okay.